There has always been something different about you, hasn't there? You have felt it for as long as you can remember. The struggles that seemed to come your way without reason. The doors that stayed shut when they seemed wide open for others. The betrayals that cut deeper than they should have. The relentless resistance that met you at every turn. You have spent years wondering why. Wondering if you were simply unlucky. Wondering if you were being punished, but what if I told you that? None of it was an accident? What if I told you that before you were even born, something powerful had already been set in motion for you? That there was never a curse against you, only a calling? What if the weight you have been carrying was never meant to break you, but to prepare you? Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1:5. You were marked for something greater before you ever took your first breath. The world does not fight against those who are meant to blend in. The world does not try to suppress those who pose no threat to the forces of darkness. The struggles, the setbacks, the resistance, it was all because of who you are meant to become. From the beginning, there has been a battle over your destiny. The enemy has tried to confuse you, to keep you in doubt, to make you believe that you were abandoned. But look around you. You are still here. Every attack, every hardship, every moment that should have destroyed you, you survived, and not just survived. You are awakening. The enemy thought that by surrounding you with hardship, by throwing obstacles in your path, by sending people to betray you, he could bury you. He thought that by keeping you small, by keeping you struggling, by keeping you doubting, he could silence you. But what the enemy failed to realize is you were never buried, you were planted. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. John 12:24. Think about Joseph. His own brothers betrayed him, sold him into slavery, and tried to erase him from existence. He was thrown into prison for a crime he did not commit. Everything seemed to be working against him. And yet, the very suffering that was meant to destroy him positioned him for greatness. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. Joseph was not buried in that pit, he was planted. He was not forgotten in that prison, he was being prepared. And the same is true for you. Every closed door was a redirection. Every betrayal was a revelation. Every struggle was a lesson. The pressure, the pain, the hardship, they were never meant to break you. They were meant to transform you. Have you ever wondered why you felt different? Why you never quite fit in? Why the world never embraced you the way it embraced others? That is because you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. David was overlooked by his own family. When the prophet Samuel came to anoint a new king, David was not even considered a candidate. He was left in the fields while his brothers were brought forward. But God saw him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. You are never meant to follow the path that others walk. You are meant to carve a new one. Moses was chosen to lead a nation, but he stuttered and doubted himself. Esther was chosen to save her people, but she had to step forward in boldness. Gideon was called a mighty warrior, even while he hid in fear. Do you see the pattern? God does not choose the perfect. He chooses the willing, and he has chosen you. The enemy does not attack what is not a threat. The battles you have faced are proof that you were born for something greater. Have you noticed how certain people seem to walk through life with ease? How they never face the same level of resistance that you do? That is because they were never called to disrupt the enemy's kingdom the way you are. For many are invited, but few are chosen. Matthew 22:14. You have been chosen. And that calling comes with opposition. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the fire for refusing to bow. Daniel was thrown into the lion's den for standing firm in his faith. Paul was beaten, imprisoned, and shipwrecked because he carried the message of truth. The battles you have faced were not random. They were confirmation of your anointing. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9. You have felt abandoned, but God has never left you. You have felt broken, but God has been strengthening you. You have felt forgotten, but He has been preparing you, and now you are stepping into the fullness of who you were created to be. Everything that has happened in your life has led to this moment. The things that once weighed you down have now become the very tools that will propel you forward. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. The pain that was meant to silence you is now your testimony. The struggles that were meant to break you are now your strength. The obstacles that tried to stop you are now your stepping stones. You are no longer a victim of your past. You are a warrior stepping into your destiny. Declare it now. I am chosen. I am called. I am ready. Your time is now. Your breakthrough is here. Step forward into your purpose. There is a power within you that has been waiting to be unleashed. For too long, you have lived under the weight of doubt, under the limitations that others have placed on you, under the belief that you are not enough. But those days are over. The time of hesitation, of questioning your worth, of wondering if you have what it takes, it is coming to an end. You are created with purpose, with strength, with a destiny that is not dictated by your past or by what others think of you. There is something inside you, something placed there by God Himself that no one can take away. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. 2 Timothy 1:7. This power is not something you have to earn, it is something you already carry. It has been with you all along, even when you felt weak, even when you felt lost. The enemy has worked tirelessly to make you forget who you are, to distract you from the authority you walk in. But no more. There is nothing that can stand against what God has placed inside you. No setback, no betrayal, no mistake is greater than His purpose for your life. Every limitation you have believed in, every false story you have told yourself about who you are, it is time to break free from all of it. You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. 1 John 4:4. You are never meant to live a small life. You are never meant to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. The power of God is inside you, and it is time to live like you believe it. Most battles are not fought in the physical world, they are fought in the mind. The thoughts you dwell on, the fears you allow to take root, the doubts you entertain, these are the real chains that have kept you bound. The enemy does not need to physically stop you, he only needs to convince you that you are already defeated. If he can make you believe that you are powerless, then you will never step into the fullness of who you were created to be. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. For years, you have been told who you are by the world. You have been labeled by your past mistakes, by your struggles, by the opinions of others. But those voices do not define you. The only voice that matters is the voice of God, and He has already spoken over your life. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. 1 Peter 2:9. You are never ordinary. You were never forgotten. You were never disqualified. Every limitation that has kept you bound is being shattered, not because of anything you have done, But because of what God has already declared over your life, the enemy loves to remind you of your past. He whispers lies, telling you that your mistakes have disqualified you, that your failures have made you unworthy, that you are too broken to be used by God. But nothing could be further from the truth. If your past could disqualify you, then Paul would have never become the greatest evangelist in history. He persecuted Christians. He was violent. He was feared, and yet God called him. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Romans 5:8. David committed sins that should have destroyed his legacy, yet God still called him a man after his own heart. Rahab was a prostitute, yet she became part of the lineage of Jesus. Moses was a murderer, yet he led an entire nation to freedom. Nothing in your past is greater than God's plan for your future. The very things that should have broken you, the very things that you have been ashamed of, will become part of your testimony. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. 2 Corinthians 5:17. You do not have to prove yourself. You do not have to earn your place. You do not have to be perfect. God already knew everything about you when he called you, and he chose you anyway. One of the greatest weapons the enemy uses is fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. How many times have you hesitated, not because you didn't have what it takes, but because you were afraid of what would happen if you tried and failed? Fear is a liar. Fear is the voice that tells you to stay where it is safe, to avoid risk, to remain comfortable. But nothing great was ever built from comfort. Every great move of God required someone to step out in faith. Peter could have stayed in the boat, but he chose to step onto the water. Esther could have remained silent, but she chose to speak. Abraham could have stayed in his homeland, but he chose to follow God into the unknown. Faith is not the absence of fear, it is moving forward despite it. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Psalm 56:3. God is not asking you to be fearless. He is asking you to trust him more than you trust your fear. As so many people are waiting for the right moment. They think they need more preparation, more confirmation, more resources. But God has already given you everything you need to step into your purpose. Moses stood before God and told him all the reasons he was unqualified. He said he could not speak well, that he was not the right person for the job. But God's response was clear. Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. Exodus 4:11-12. God does not call the equipped, he equips the called. If he has placed a dream inside you, if he has put a vision in your heart, then he has also given you everything you need to fulfill it. You do not need to wait until you feel ready. You do not need to wait for permission. You do not need to wait for everything to make sense. Your time is now. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. Every limitation is a lie. Every fear is a distraction. Every excuse is a delay. You're stronger than you think. You're more powerful than you realize. You're already prepared. The only thing left to do is take the first step. God has already set everything in motion for you to step into your destiny. There is nothing missing, nothing lacking, nothing that needs to be added to what he has already placed inside you. The enemy may try to convince you that you're not enough, that you need more qualifications, more experience, more resources. But God does not work according to human standards. He chooses the unlikely, the overlooked, the underqualified, and he makes them powerful through his Spirit. Look at Gideon. He was hiding, threshing wheat in a winepress filled with fear. feeling unworthy. Yet when the angel of the Lord appeared to him, he called him a mighty warrior. God did not speak to Gideon based on his current situation, but based on his potential. He saw what Gideon could become through faith. The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" Judges 6:14. God is saying the same to you. Go in the strength you have. You may not feel strong. You may not feel prepared. But God does not ask you to bring perfection. He asks you to bring willingness. He will provide the rest. As so often, we believe that our weaknesses disqualify us. We see our flaws, our struggles, our insecurities, and we think they make us unworthy of God's calling. But in God's kingdom, weakness is not a disqualification, it is an invitation for His strength to shine. But He said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me." 2 Corinthians 12:9. Paul, one of the greatest apostles, understood this truth. He faced trials. He had a thorn in his flesh. He endured persecution, yet he knew that in his weakness, God's strength was magnified. When you feel weak, when you feel unworthy, when you feel like you do not have enough, that is the perfect place for God to show up. He does not ask you to be strong on your own. He asks you to lean on Him, to draw from His strength, to trust in His power. The very things you believe are holding you back are the things God will use to propel you forward. What you see as a limitation, He sees as an opportunity. What you view as a hindrance, He views as a platform for His glory. The battles you face are not random. The enemy does not waste his resources on those who pose no threat to him. If you are experiencing resistance, if you are walking through trials, if it seems like everything is working against you, it is. Because the enemy knows what you carry, he sees your potential. He sees the calling on your life. He sees the anointing that God has placed on you, and he is terrified. This is why the attacks have been so strong. This is why the battles have been so intense. The enemy is not fighting you because of where you are. He is fighting you because of where you are going. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. John 10:10. The enemy would not be trying so hard to stop you if you are not carrying something valuable. He would not be sending confusion, doubt, and fear if your future was not significant. Every obstacle, every setback, every disappointment is a sign that you are on the right path. The more the enemy fights, the more determined you should be. The greater the resistance, the greater the breakthrough on the other side. Faith is not just believing that God exists, it is moving forward, as if His promises are already true. It is not waiting for perfect conditions, but stepping out even when the ground feels unsteady. It is not having all the answers, but trusting that God will guide you along the way. When the Israelites stood before the Red Sea, they had no idea how they would cross it. They could not see the path through the water. All they saw was an impossible situation. But God told Moses to stretch out his staff, to take a step of faith, and the sea parted. When Joshua led the people to the Jordan River, it was at flood stage. There was no logical way to cross. But as soon as the priests stepped into the water, the river stopped flowing. When Peter saw Jesus walking on the water, he could have stayed in the boat. He could have waited for safer conditions. But when Jesus said, "Come," Peter stepped out and he walked on water. For we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. Faith is an action. It is movement. It is stepping forward even when you cannot see the full picture. It is trusting that God will meet you there, that His provision will be enough, that His power will carry you every step of faith you take. is a step into your destiny. Every move you make in obedience is bringing you closer to the promises God has spoken over your life. The time for waiting is over. The time for wondering, for hesitating, for doubting is coming to an end. Everything you need is already within you. God has equipped you. He has prepared you. He has gone before you to make the crooked path straight. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Isaiah 43:19. This is your moment to break free from every limitation, from every lie, from every chain that has tried to hold you back. This is the season where you step into the fullness of who you were created to be. And no more listening to the doubts. No more agreeing with the fear. No more waiting for the perfect conditions. You are ready. You are chosen. You are called. God's power is within you, and it is time to live like you believe it. The obstacles may still be there. The challenges may still arise, but you are not walking in your own strength. You are walking in the power of the one who has called you, who has anointed you, who has already gone ahead of you to prepare the way. Nothing can stop what God has already set in motion for your life. Every moment of delay, every setback, every obstacle that once stood in your way is losing its power. What was meant to hold you back has only made you stronger. The pain you endured, the struggles you faced, the times you thought you would never recover, they have all been working together to prepare you for this very moment. The enemy tried to silence you, but your voice will be louder than ever. He tried to break you, but instead, you have been made unshakable. You have been walking through a season of refinement, a season where everything that was not meant for you has been stripped away. God has been pruning, removing distractions, cutting away relationships and opportunities that were never meant to last. It may have felt like loss, but in reality, it was preparation. He has been making space for something greater. Everything that was removed was only making room for the abundance that is coming. The people who doubted you, who walked away from you, who spoke against you, will have no choice but to witness what God is about to do in your life. They thought your struggles would destroy you, but instead, they became the foundation for your breakthrough. They thought you would stay in the same place, stuck in the same cycles, trapped by fear and uncertainty. But what they did not understand is that when God sets someone apart, when He anoints them for a purpose, nothing and no one can stand in the way. You are stepping into a season where doors will open without you having to force them. What once seemed impossible will happen effortlessly. The opportunities you once chased will now find you. The favor that was withheld is being released in ways you never expected. God has gone ahead of you, and every step you take from this moment forward is divinely guided. There is no more striving, no more fear, no more wondering if you are enough. You are more than enough because the power of God is within you. The weight you carried for so long is being lifted. The doubts that held you back are fading. The fear that kept you from stepping out is losing its grip. You have everything you need to walk in the fullness of who you were created to be. God's plan for you has never changed. His promises have never failed. His love for you has never wavered. Every tear you cried, every prayer you prayed, every night you spent wondering if God saw you, He did. And now He is making all things new. The delays are over. The breakthrough is here. The transformation is complete. You are no longer who you used to be. The old is gone. The new has come. You are walking in strength, in confidence, in power. You have been called. You have been chosen, and now you are rising. The time for waiting is over. The time for questioning is done. It is time to move forward. Step boldly into your destiny. knowing that nothing can stop what God has started. Your best days are ahead. The victory is already yours.